Welcome to today's video on trade, intellectual property, and other similar topics. And we're going to just continue on the trajectory that we started on. And this video is just like a sequel to the series where we're talking about the WTO, World Intellectual Property Organization, and how these institutions and the laws and the policies are geared towards propelling the more developed countries as opposed to the least developed countries. So we're going to start talking about some of the technologies that are held by these countries. And the first one that I want us to start discussing is the concept of the cell phone triangulation, the cell phone signal triangulation. So cell phone signal triangulation basically relates to the signal that your phone broadcasts to a cell phone tower, where, for instance, the GPS on your phone has been deactivated. So when you deactivate GPS, the law authorities are still able to track your movements through a process that's referred to as the cell phone triangulation. And so how it happens is that there could be one tower that receives either a text message when you're trying to send a text message or when you're trying to call, or vice versa. So which means that if you receive a text message or if you receive a phone call while you're next to one cell phone tower, then the tower can, depending on its location and whether it's pointing towards or near the direction that your phone is, then the tower can estimate sort of like the distance between the transmitting device and the tower itself. And so how triangulation actually happens is that there has to be a second tower. So there's one tower and a second tower, and if you happen to move between these two towers, by the time the transmission has occurred, or if there are several transmissions occurring, then the two towers can estimate the distance between themselves and the broadcasting signal from the cell phone. And so what happens is that they use the circumference between one tower and the signal and the broadcasting signal from the cell phone device. They use a concept called the azimuth, which measures the distance between the ground and the sky. It's also referred to as elevation sometimes. And this is important because they use such information to determine, precisely how far somebody could have been if there were hills or something like that, and the location where the signal has been broadcasted from, where it has been received. And so the importance of trade and technology and intellectual property with regards to this sort of form of application is that when countries in the global south and countries that are disadvantaged or that have been termed as the least developed countries don't have such technologies, and it becomes really difficult to follow up on things like poaching and just other forms of law enforcement that use this sort of technology to track down all sorts of vices that could be happening. They traffic humans and do these sorts of nefarious things. And so one way that this cell phone triangulation happens is that one tower will intersect, the circumference from one tower will intersect with the circumference from the second tower, and they use algorithms, so mathematical programs on a computer to determine the distance between one tower and the other, and the broadcast signal that forms, in the intersection of these two circles, between the first tower and the second tower, with regards to where the broadcasting signal was received from. They could estimate, the distance, between the two towers because they're fixed, and use that now to triangulate the exact position that the signal was broadcasted from the device, from the cellular device. So the problem here is that such technologies are not readily available to African countries in the global south, and melanated people from. And so this becomes such a significant disadvantage to us, to try and compete in the global trade effectively. And so I think that we should be more united as countries in the global south in just trying to level the playing field and trying to get access to such devices readily available to other countries where we might not have the capacity or the capability to create such technologies. And because of how rigorous the intellectual property system, the global intellectual property system is, um, necessarily means that we cannot create such technologies for ourselves because patents to such systems exist. There could be, the, it's the software that's being used to compute the distance between some of these sites or where cell phone signal is being broadcasted from. Some of these programs we might not have access to them as countries in the global south. And so I think that we should be looking to develop such systems of our own or license them from countries that are enabling or supporting the open source softwares and similar forms of royalty-free agreements and other forms of IP exchange, such as copyleft systems. So they're quite widely available across the board to countries that probably do not have as much capital as is required to license such systems over a long period of time. And so we want to support countries and support institutions that are not geared towards keeping the system as it exists, and because this is so difficult to achieve. It only takes a collective effort to sort of like upset the current order as it is. But yeah, just remember to subscribe, and this is just the first of many videos where we're going to be talking about interesting topics and topics that will keep you informed and keep you abreast of the developments, whether technological, whether legal developments, and just general information about how we can address our historical position on the receiving end of global sanctions and just such rudimentary procedures that still exist. For instance, in the WTO, we're going to talk about, for instance, the dispute solving body and how the appeal system is dysfunctional, and because it has been kept this way for such a long time, and countries such as America have shown their willingness to be contumelious and have no regard of the authority of such bodies and put their own systems and their own agenda, their own policies ahead of the multilateral system. And we're just going to address this and talk about how we can also work our own measures that we can use to counteract or dull down the effects of American unilateralism, especially when it comes to the WTO. So